Breaking developments from the palace tonight. Prince Andrew's title has been formally removed. He will now be known simply as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. But behind that headline lies a story most people have never heard in full. A story involving secret relationships conducted inside royal walls, intimate betrayals that unfolded under the same roof as the marriage itself, and confrontations between senior royals that revealed just how far things had spiralled. What palace staff observed, what royal authors pieced together from their sources, and what the family desperately tried to bury. This is that full account. And the details are truly staggering. When Sarah Ferguson married into the royal family, she arrived with optimism and a belief that becoming the wife of the Queen's second son would provide security and purpose. What she encountered instead was isolation. Andrew's naval career meant extended deployments overseas. Multiple sources confirm the couple spent barely more than 40 days together annually during those early years. That kind of sustained separation creates a vacuum. And in that vacuum, emotional bonds begin to fray. By 1989, Sarah was reportedly struggling with profound loneliness. Enter Steve Wyatt, a wealthy Texas oilman with confidence, charisma, and access to circles where royalty and wealth intersected. They first crossed paths at a cultural event in Houston. According to individuals close to Sarah during that period, she became deeply infatuated. Some royal biographers have quoted sources claiming she once referred to Wyatt as the love of her life. Whether that characterization is accurate or inflated, the impact on her marriage was undeniable. The emotional connection intensified. Andrew, deployed at sea, remained unaware of what was unfolding back home. When Andrew finally learnt the truth, the marriage absorbed a devastating blow. From that point forward, the fractures were impossible to hide. Dr. Alan Starkey, whose research covers Sarah extensively, describes a revealing incident outside Harry's bar in Mayfair. Sarah, visibly pregnant, stumbled and fell on the pavement. Andrew simply kept walking. He offered no hand, no pause, no acknowledgement. She was left to recover and follow behind him. For a couple once marketed as a modern royal fairy tale, it was a chilling snapshot of how thoroughly the foundation had collapsed. Wyatt eventually exited Sarah's life and became engaged to someone else. But the emotional wreckage he left behind never healed. And yet, what came next would prove even more explosive. John Bryan appeared publicly as a financial consultant, helping Sarah navigate commercial ventures tied to her books. Privately, according to multiple biographers, he was much more than that. And this is where the story descends into territory that still shocks even those familiar with royal scandals. Bryan was allegedly staying at Sunninghill Park, the residence gifted to Andrew and Sarah by the Queen herself. According to Dr. Starkey's account, Andrew had no awareness that the man advising Sarah professionally was involved with her romantically. But the most jaw-dropping claim involves what allegedly occurred inside the family home. It is reported that after Andrew retired to his bedroom, Sarah and Bryan would move into Andrew's personal study, just steps away, and engage in intimate behaviour while Andrew slept nearby. Lord Charteris, the Queen's former private secretary, is said to have reacted with fury upon hearing this. His response, according to those present, was simply, vulgar, vulgar, vulgar. And if you think that's where this ends, it doesn't. What happened next brought the private scandal into the global spotlight in the most humiliating way imaginable. If you want to stay ahead of every twist in this saga as more details emerge, and trust me, they will, hit subscribe and turn on notifications right now. This story is far from finished. Then came the photographs. The infamous images from the French Riviera showing Bryan in a compromising position with Sarah's toes. Those pictures didn't just embarrass the palace. They detonated a crisis that forced the institution to respond publicly to something they'd been managing privately for years. Inside palace walls, the reaction was swift and severe. According to Andrew Loney's recent biography, Princess Anne led the family's response. At a private dinner, Anne reportedly delivered a scathing rebuke. She condemned Sarah's judgment, her carelessness, and the disgrace she had inflicted on the family. What stands out most is this. Not a single person at that table defended Sarah. Not Andrew. Not one family member or friend spoke in her favour. One witness recalled that Sarah behaved as though she were the victim, blaming photographers and media outlets rather than accepting responsibility for her own actions. Later, she was summoned to meet the Queen. A palace staff member, quoted in one biography, said Sarah's demeanour was bizarre, defensive, almost indignant, as though she still refused to believe she bore any accountability for the chaos she had caused. But while Sarah's scandals dominated front pages, Andrew's own behaviour was quietly eroding the marriage from the inside. One former driver told author Andrew Loney that Andrew had allegedly been involved with more than a dozen women within the first year of marriage alone. So while Sarah's affairs exploded publicly, Andrew's were whispered about behind closed doors. Together, these patterns meant the marriage had nothing left to sustain it. In 1992, while Sarah was travelling, Andrew called her. According to multiple accounts, he informed her they were separating. She reportedly broke down, sobbing. But here's the critical detail. Andrew allegedly told her the decision wasn't entirely his own. The palace had reached its breaking point. Senior figures had exhausted their patience. The marriage had become unsustainable, and a public announcement was now unavoidable. They divorced in 1996. But unlike most former couples, that wasn't the end. Despite the scandals, despite the affairs, despite the public humiliation, Sarah and Andrew continued living together. Royal Lodge became their shared refuge. To outsiders, it was bizarre. To them, it was routine. They raised their daughters side by side. They vacationed together. They appeared at events together. They even branded themselves the happiest divorced couple. It never resembled romance. It resembled two people who had survived a catastrophe together and were now bound by whatever secrets they kept locked away. Some believe they simply understood each other in ways no one else could. Others believe they remained close because fully separating would risk exposing truths neither wanted public. For years, whispers circulated that Andrew's private conduct was far more reckless than the palace ever publicly acknowledged. Staff members and former protection officers have spoken quietly about a consistent pattern. Women, some reportedly escorts, appearing in his orbit during his most active social years. These were not discreet relationships. They were impulsive encounters that raised serious concerns among those responsible for maintaining protocol within the royal household. Most troubling are the claims that some of these women were brought into Buckingham Palace without proper security clearance. Staff would allegedly discover unfamiliar women arriving late at night with minimal explanation and zero documentation. In royal terms, this was a critical breach. These weren't family friends or vetted associates. They were strangers entering one of the most secure buildings in the nation with no background checks, no identification, and no justification for their presence. It created frustration and alarm among palace personnel who had to manage the fallout, while Andrew continued as though the rules simply didn't apply to him. Now, decades later, their shared existence at Royal Lodge is ending. Andrew has been ordered to vacate the property. His remaining royal privileges have evaporated. His title is gone. His public role is gone. He will soon relocate to a significantly smaller residence on the King's private Sandringham estate. Sarah's next home remains unconfirmed. What is certain is that the long and complicated partnership they maintained for so many years is quietly disintegrating. Their marriage didn't collapse because of one mistake. It collapsed because of repeated patterns: affairs, absence, loneliness, refusal to accept accountability, indulgence, moral bankruptcy, and catastrophically poor decisions made by two people who genuinely believed consequences didn't apply to them. These indulgent betrayals on both sides reveal one undeniable truth. They operated as though they were untouchable, as though repercussions were designed for people beneath their station. The wreckage they've left behind is extensive, and now insiders describe them both as entering a steep and irreversible decline. So here's what I want to know. Do you think Andrew and Sarah stayed together all these years because they genuinely cared for each other, or because separating fully would expose secrets neither could afford to have public? Was their happiest divorced couple routine real, or was it damage control? And now that they're being forced apart, what do you think comes next? Drop your thoughts below. I read every single comment. If you want to follow what happens next in this unravelling saga, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because this story is far from over. And if you want to understand how the palace has been managing other scandals behind the scenes, check out the video I've linked next about Sarah Ferguson's recent controversies and how the royal family has tried to distance themselves. Thank you for watching.